I just want to take a couple of minutes to run through the Canada Bay Pedestrian Access and Mobility Plan. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it's 268 pages long. Trust me, it's quite a grind. But there's just one fundamental problem with it. And you can go through this entire document from one end to the other, and you won't see anything mentioned about the hierarchy of modes. Nothing. I mean, if you go and Google or use DuckDuckGo to look up hierarchy of modes, you'll see all these different representations of how the hierarchy should look in the modern world, and that is you've got pedestrians on top, and then cyclists, public transport, vehicles with a number of people in them like taxis or rideshare, and then a vehicle with just one person in it. And there's all sorts of ways that these things get represented. But the idea is that no matter what, pedestrians are always on top, and that's it. And drivers in private vehicles are way down the bottom. Now, there's a lot of good stuff in this document which has been produced by GHD, but you won't see anything in here, none of that fundamental stuff which says we need to give pedestrians priority followed by cyclists, and drivers will just have to put up with the leftovers, so to speak. There's lots of good stuff in here about wanting to encourage walking, and there's great big matrices of work that should happen, and there's lots of integration with all sorts of other plans, and priorities have been done, and there's costings, and there's a great deal of good stuff in here, except the failure to accept giving pedestrians top priority in the hierarchy of modes. And so because of that, the whole report kind of falls flat, because it just really isn't able to properly get across this idea of giving pedestrians first priority whenever there's a road crossing, whatever. And so what happens, is every time some works get suggested that, we've got to put in a pedestrian crossing here, for instance. Oh no, we can't do that because it'll slow drivers down. And that immediately tells you that the hierarchy is upside down, that drivers have been given the top priority, that their convenience and speed is the most important thing to council, and pedestrians and their safety and directness of routes and all that kind of stuff, forget it. So yeah, good report, but I suggest you have a flick through it, because there's a hell of a lot of stuff in here, but it just still comes down to this fundamental thing of why couldn't they accept that you want to give pedestrians the top priority in the hierarchy, not drivers, because that is the fundamental strategic change the council needs to wrap its head around. And until it does that, well, I'm sorry, but this report's great, but it's a bit of a waste of space.